The French city of Le Mans hosts the legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans race each summer on the Circuit de la Sarthe. This event has been running annually since 1923 and is, as such, the oldest endurance race in the world. As a result, the circuit and event have appeared in at least 18 PC racing titles over the years as of early 2024. In this video we'll complete an entire lap of the circuit, switching between games as they were released chronologically. After that we'll take a look at 3 locations around the track versus real life, before finally putting various games head to head. Before we begin, there are a few non-qualifying games which won't be included. The first one to not make the grade is Pit Stop 2, which was essentially a 2-player F1 racing game. As you can see here, one of the 4 tracks in the game is allegedly Le Mans. However, in-game the track map doesn't resemble the real-life circuit at all, and the simplistic graphics means it's in no way realistic. The second game to not make the cut might be slightly more controversial. Mario Andretti's Racing Challenge features a raft of different cars and circuits, including Le Mans. Now, whilst the track map is accurate, the scenery is extremely limited, there are no hills and the scale is off, meaning it takes a very long time to do a lap. This is one of the few games where you actually get bored driving at 235 miles an hour down the Mulsanne Straight, so I'll be skipping this one. Speed Dreams is a free racing game based on the Torx simulation engine and has a version of Le Mans titled Long Day. Unfortunately, the track only includes the road and barriers with no trackside scenery. As a result, it's pretty dull, so again, we'll skip this one. The next 3 games that won't be included are all similar. They're built from off-the-shelf Unity 3D assets, seemingly from retrocartooncars.com. The first is Barrow F22, an F1 style game where you can take all the corners at maximum speed. As this was released in 2022, it would look pretty odd in the middle of a lot of high-end simulators. Likewise, I'm skipping its sister game, Barrow GT, which replaces the F1 cars with a selection of road, rally and sports cars. Finally, I'll also avoid the early access title, Mad Car for PC from the Epic store, which uses largely the same track model as the Barrow games, albeit better textured. But the game is largely unfinished. You'll notice I'm driving behind the car here, as the in-car camera is rather broken. As is most of this game, hence it being skipped over. So, without further ado, let's begin A Lap in Time, Le Mans. We begin the lap with the year 2000 version of Le Mans 24 Hours. This one came out on the PC and the PlayStation 1 from Technics and Infogrames. Now you notice the timer here runs almost twice as fast as it should, meaning this lap is over very quickly compared to later games. This game eventually made its way back to the PC via the Dreamcast and PlayStation 2, in this version that was from Melbourne House and ported by Taurus Games. This one is the slowest version of Le Mans, running somewhere between 20 and 30 frames per second. It looks nice, but it's just so treacle-like to play, it doesn't go very well. What does go well is Grid, Race Driver Grid here from 2008. It's a very wide version of Le Mans, and it's got this kind of a brown dirty filter which they thought made things look kind of gritty and dirty, realistic, but it just makes it look a bit brown and hard to see where you're going sometimes. Project Cars from 2015 doesn't have this problem, however. Everything here looks very clinical. The lighting is a little bit flickery on the road, as you can see at the very bottom of the shot here. But it's the first version of the track that's pretty accurate to real life. Speaking of accurate to real life, let's go over to iRacing. The lighting here isn't quite as good as Project Cars, but the trees and the foliage you can see here is very accurate. It's one of the best versions of Le Mans out there. Next up we'll go back to Project Cars 2, which as you can see is an enhancement over the first Project Cars with a bit more natural lighting, but it does have this sort of gloomy vignette effect at the top of the screen, which makes bright sunny days feel a bit like you're wearing some sort of sunglasses. Overall, it's not too bad though. So the next game we'll come to is Forza Motorsport 7. Now this has a bit of a weird one with daytime. You can't set midday clear skies, you've got this kind of drab, gloomy sort of appearance to the daytime, which makes everything feel a bit low contrast and not really very exciting to look at. R Factor 2, however, is a very good version of the track. I had to turn off motion blur here though, because the add-on Vanwall car that I purchased causes clipping issues on the motion blur and makes it look awful. It's weird, some of the trees here, they look a bit like lollipops stuck together. Overall, it's one of the better versions of Le Mans. This, however, isn't. This is Gear.Club Unlimited 2 Ultimate Edition, a port of a Nintendo Switch game to the PC. It's very arcade, and the trees in particular look, well, they just don't look very good at all, really. There's not a lot to say about this one. It doesn't really stack up to the other versions of the track. Here's the 2023 version of Forza Motorsport, and you'll notice the colours are much more true to life and everything feels pretty good here. I do think my ageing PC doesn't do the textures on the road surface particularly good justice here, however. Moving on, this is Automobilista 2's version of the track that came out right at the end of 2023. Much like other Automobilista 2 tracks, the Madness engine allows this kind of a slight blue tint to the circuit as though it's reflecting the sky, and overall this is another very good version of Le Mans. But the best version of Le Mans is Le Mans Ultimate, and you'll see why in a minute when I do the head-to-head screenshot comparisons. Everything about this is extremely accurate, especially given that I'll be comparing it to 2023 real-life shots. So here we are coming back to the start-finish straight on the first lap of Le Mans. Yes, that's right, we're going to do 2 laps of Le Mans here because Le Mans is an endurance event, which means it races right through the night time. Let's have a look at how nighttime is handled in each of the games. Here's the first Le Mans 24-hour game from Technics and Infogrames. The light source here is kind of beams out from your car, but not in a very good way. Everything's very dark, but if you look closely there are some fireworks in the distance, which is a nice effect, albeit they're over very quickly. What isn't very quick is the 2002 version of the game. It does have some nice effects here though with the funfair. This whole sequence, by the way, isn't in the later versions of the games because it has a left-right sweeper S's that have replaced this whole bit, so it's quite nice historically to see this part of the track in some games. Race Driver Grid is the first game that runs widescreen here. It's got, well, the brown filter's still present, and now we've got added bloom effects, so everything's kind of very hyper-real and still all a bit yellow. What isn't yellow is Project Cars. Now the nighttime here is a little bit on the light side. It's a bit like somebody's lit up a massive light on the horizon. Otherwise it's not too bad. There's not a huge amount of trackside lighting going on here, but then this is a Mulsanne straight, so it's mainly trees and industrial units. iRacing, similarly, this has quite a nice lighting effect, lighting up the road ahead, but again, it's probably not the most exciting part of the track to compare at night time, given that there's just a lot of forest and not many light sources going on here. But it gives a good impression of driving through the night. Here's Project Cars 2 with some very intense headlights. The sky in this one's better than the first Project Cars game as it's much darker. It does look a little bit video gamey in some ways, but it's not a terrible experience of driving this one at night. And here's Forza Motorsport 7. I think they could do with a headlight upgrade on this car. Everything's very, very dark, which is quite nerve-wracking, to be honest, especially the tree line is just so dark as well, and there's hardly any lights outside. Oh, there's a few. So I think this one could be better. A bit like this, for instance. R Factor 2 has got some lovely nighttime effect. Again, it's a shame that I can't use the motion blur here because those little reflectors in the barriers stand out really well when they're motion blurring, and it looks, there we go, hit through the light sources as we go under the bridge. It's a very nice version of the track. And this isn't a very good nighttime version of the track because Gear.Club Unlimited 2 Ultimate Edition doesn't have a nighttime mode. It just has this early evening, kind of gloomy atmosphere version of the track in one of the races. Yeah, there's not much to say here really. It's a shame it doesn't have a nighttime mode because this is Forza Motorsport 2023 and it's got a really nice nighttime mode. You can see the lights lighting up at the edge of the circuit, giving a nice glow. The headlights are doing a good effect here. Forza Motorsport, yeah, this is a very nice nighttime experience at Le Mans. Here's Automobilista 2. Again, a bit like the early Project Cars game we looked at, the sky here is a little bit too light, and so are all the trees. Everything's kind of lit up as though you've got some massive lighting on your car. Nice to see the purpley pink bandstand is there, which is there in real life if you watch a real life lap of the circuit from 2023. And here's Le Mans Ultimate. This is beautiful. I mean, look at the motion blur here, look at the lighting effects, everything's just glorious. It's such a real visually lush experience of driving this track at night. It doesn't get better than this, as we'll see in a minute when I compare some screenshots of the track head to head with real life. So here we are coming out of the gloom through into the enormously lit up grandstand section, and that completes our 2 laps around Le Mans, both at daytime and nighttime. Let's now compare 3 locations around the track to real life. The real-life shots here come from the 2023 event, so are fairly recent. Sadly, there are no onboard videos shot from a bumper cam view, so you have to ignore the car blocking some of the view. Firstly, let's look at Tetre Rouge, where the racetrack joins public roads and dives downhill past the iconic row of plane trees. The first Le Mans game has the trees and it has the Tetre Rouge restaurant on the left, but it's pretty basic. Here's the second version of the Le Mans game. The trees are way down the road and the restaurant is kind of incorrect here. Race Driver Grid has the restaurant, the trees are completely the wrong sort, and the hill's all completely wrong as well. Project Cars, this is the first one to try and do it accurately. Trees are a little bit on the small side, but everything else is in the right place. iRacing has the trees perfect actually, because they'd just been pruned when they did this version of the track. All the other scenery's there. Project Cars 2, not too bad again, as you can see. Trees could be a little bit more fluffy. Forza Motorsport 7, the trees look a bit plasticky here. The restaurant's in place, and so's the building on the right. R-Factor 2, the trees are a little bit on the skinny side here, otherwise everything else is present and correct. Gear.Club Unlimited 2 Ultimate Edition, what's happened to the trees? They've become little shrubs. Forza Motorsport from 23, this is a good version of the track here, you can see all the right bits are present. Automobilista 2, another good version of the track. The trees could be a little thicker, especially as this is meant to be the same year as the picture on the left. And here's Le Mans Ultimate, which is just bang on. I mean, look, just look at it. For our second comparison, let's switch to nighttime and compare the start-finish straight with its colossal grandstands. The first Le Mans game does have the buildings, but the lighting here is all very basic and it's pretty dark. The second version of Le Mans 24 Hours, a building's a bit too illuminated on the right I think, and a bit too set back. Race Driver Grid has all the elements, but it just feels brown and not very nice. Project Cars, the building on the right's a little on the large side I find here. iRacing, this is a good version of the track, hasn't got the sponsorship on the left, but that's fine, it's a completely different year. Project Cars 2, again the building on the right, you can see inside it and people, nice detail, but it's a bit too brightly lit compared to real life. Forza Motorsport 7 has a lot of lighting present, but some that isn't actually there on the building on the right. R-Factor 2, this is a very good version of the track, just look at the lighting. It's not as good as another one that's coming up though. Gear.Club Unlimited 2 Ultimate Edition has the right bits, but doesn't have a nighttime mode. Forza Motorsport is good, the motor holding on the left is slightly the wrong angle, otherwise it's not too bad. Automobilista 2 again has all the right elements, you can see through the building windows a bit too well though compared to real life. And here's Le Mans Ultimate, just look at it, it's almost like a photograph, it's that good. Finally, let's head out to Arnage, one of the slowest corners on the track, and what I think of as the lucky house. Imagine looking out of your back window onto the most well-known race in endurance racing history. The first Le Mans game does have the building, it's completely wrong, but at least it has it there. The second seems to have lost the building in amongst the trees and gained a pile of sand. Race Driver Grid forgot the building as well, even though it was present in 2008. Project Cars has all the right elements, but the trees are a bit small and the building colours are wrong. iRacing, again, it's got the right elements and the trees look pretty good here. As I said, the foliage is pretty good in iRacing. Project Cars 2, again, it's got the elements, but it's lacking the trees. They seem to have moved back. Forza Motorsport 7 is... it's not quite right. R-Factor 2 is very good. Trees could be slightly more accurate, I feel. Gear.Club Unlimited 2, yeah, it's got the bits and pieces, they're just totally wrong. Forza Motorsport has gone big on the trees. I mean, these are massive trees, way bigger than real life. Automobilista 2, very similar to the Project Cars games, it's got the right sort of trees, but they're a bit small. And Le Mans Ultimate is, again, it's just almost spot on, just the colours of the house could be slightly better. It's time to put some games head to head. Here's the original 2000 version of the game versus the 2002 version. It's hare versus tortoise. Here are two arcade racing games released 13 years apart. In some ways, Grid, despite being less accurate, looks better. Here's Project Cars 1 and 2, so you can see what they changed. iRacing and Automobilista 2, two very good simulators using very different 3D engines. Here's the leap between Forza Motorsport 7 and the latest 2023 version of the game. And here's the big one, R-Factor 2 versus Le Mans Ultimate. It's in no way a copy and paste track between the two games. Finally, let's look at all 12 games at the same time. And that completes our look at the Le Mans circuit. Which game do you think does the track most justice? Which do you prefer? Comment below. And which track do you think I'll compare next? If you like, subscribe and ring the bell, you'll be notified as to when you can watch the next episode of A Lap in Time.